keeps going off. Thank you. And first, we will have the swearing in of Nicole Phyllis. Please rise and face Tracy.
Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Nicole Phyllis,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of California, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a rent control board member
faithfully discharge the duties of the
according to the best of my ability.
Yay. Welcome.
So I need to have you sign this.
Would you call the roll, please?
Alrighty. Commissioner Trosis.
Here.
Commissioner Sultan.
Here.
Commissioner Foster.
Here.
Commissioner Phyllis.
Here.
And Commissioner Duran has not arrived yet.
And this is yours.
All right, we'll stand for the salute to our flag.
Great. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll take a moment to look at the minutes from the last meeting. And when either Commissioner Trosis or Sultan is ready.
Move to approve the minutes. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are accepted with one abstention. Welcome, Commissioner Duran. Do we have any announcements from staff?
Yes. Good evening. I have two things. First, I want to mention that the next rent control seminar will be on owning rental property in Santa Monica. That will be on Wednesday, March 6th in the morning at the main library. And this is an opportunity for owners and managers to learn the basics about the rent control law and how to avoid common pitfalls. We'll cover topics including rents, amenities, maintenance, eviction limitations, restrictions on change of use, and services available through the rent control office. So anybody interested should contact our office to sign up for that. And then I'd like to do something a little different than usual. This evening is Miss Regalato's last meeting with us. No. She's retiring in just a couple of weeks. So I wanted to just say a couple of things. Amy joined the Rent Control Agency in February of 2007 after working as outside counsel with the City Attorney's Office for a couple of years. Prior to that, Amy held a variety of legal positions, including serving almost 5 years as an arbitrator, mediator, and litigator for the Better Business Bureau. We were very fortunate to have Amy join us as our senior litigation attorney, and during her almost 5 years in that position, she represented the board on several very interesting cases, including one which indirectly led to the board recommending a new simplified way of calculating the general adjustment. And as you know, Santa Monica voters approved that change in 2012. In November of 2011, Amy transferred to the Hearings Division as a hearing officer 2, and she served in that position for just about a year before she was promoted to the hearings manager position. Her mediation background, along with her experience both in holding hearings and writing decisions and defending board decisions in court, made her uniquely qualified to recommend improvements in and streamlining of the mediation and hearing processes, and perhaps most importantly, hearing officer decisions. The agency has benefited significantly from Amy's professionalism and experience, and we're very thankful that she spent the last 12 years here with us at Rent Control. Amy's built a strong department, and her successor, Lynn Nalaboff, will step in equally prepared in the next couple of weeks. On a personal note, I want to thank Amy for being such a warm, intelligent, and supportive person to work with. She's been a major contributor to the agency's management team, and I've always known that I could count on her to make sure the hearings department was running as a well-oiled machine. I'll miss Amy greatly, and I wish her nothing but the best as she moves on to the next exciting phase of her life. So thank you very much, Amy, for being with us for 12 years. We really appreciate it.
And if I could just say one small short thing, we really appreciate these hearing records can sometimes be, inches and feet thick in big cases, and we understand and recognize what a huge responsibility and that is from you and your department, and how much we rely on that to make informed decisions. And even all the 8 million times when we're like, well, where's the pictures and where's it? Boom, they're right there. You and Haka, you guys have everything. You're ready to answer every question, and we appreciate that so much. Good luck, whatever you do next. All right, we have no chits.
Just one announcement.
Oh, an announcement, sure.
So this is more a community involvement opportunity, but it is going on this month. There is the California Democratic Party has an assembly district election meeting, which is when the party elects delegates to represent the district from the district at the party level. So they vote on party chair and all these other things. And that is happening on January 27th at Santa Monica College. Anyone who's a registered Democrat can attend. Anyone who can register as a Democrat at the event. So Santa Monica College, January 27th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. is when the voting will be happening.
Thank you. We have no request to speak from the public, so we'll go on to the consent calendar. Item 9, an award for request of proposal. Does anyone wish to pull it, or should we just approve? Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you to the subcommittee for all their work on this and staff. And all those in favor, you would take a roll call?
Yeah.
Or all right.
Commissioner Trosis,
Enthusiastic, yes, and good luck.
Commissioner Duran,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Sultan,
Yes.
and Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you for that. I think of this as the culmination of the process, but it's really just the beginning. So we're moving into this, which I'm very excited about. Thank you.
All right. Item 10A, we have an exemption for a single-family dwelling, case 1815-389, 725 Navy Street. We have no chits to speak. And staff, unless you have anything of note to point out, I think we should entertain a motion to grant this petition.
I'll move to move to adopt the findings of facts and conclusions of law and grant the exemption.
Second.
All right. Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Duran,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Sultan,
Yes.
Commissioner Trosis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Well, Mr. Augusta, a pleasure to see you. We're gonna
ever gone on this early ever.
He was made aware. Item
Excuse
12,
me, I thought I wanted you to go first. You didn't even get to go first.
You missed it by like 36 seconds. 12A, Brian Augusta, the Rent Control Board's advocate and representative in Sacramento, will present the legislative report. By all means, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman and members. Brian Augusta, your legislative advocate in Sacramento. When you called on me a moment ago, I thought you were just commenting on the fact that I was looking at my watch and didn't know it was actually my turn. So it is a pleasure to be on this early. And speaking of early, we're very early in the legislative session. So typically when I come and present to you all, we're either at that point in which we've seen all of the bills that have been introduced, or we're at that point where most of the bills are on the governor's desk or he's acted on them. So this is, timing-wise, is a little bit different than usual because we don't know all of the bills yet. But at the same time, for this point in the year, we know a fairly remarkable number of bills have already been introduced. We have a budget, items which I'll talk about relating to housing and homelessness. And all of that is because as has been the case for a couple of years now, the California legislature and the governor, including our new governor, Gavin Newsom, are really focused on the housing crisis in California and rising rents. I think we could all debate about some of the solutions that are being proposed, but there's no question that there is a significant focus legislatively on that. And this year is no exception. In fact, when the legislature, so we're at the beginning of a 2-year session, and the legislature in the 2-year session convenes in early December to swear in new members and do some formation and housekeeping issues. And usually that's a very quick and uneventful day in the legislature. But in this instance, there were 40 or 50 bills put in, 30 of which are on the issue of housing, homelessness, tenants' rights, which is very significant for that early in the year. Many of them are spot bills or bills that really are just sort of a placeholder language, but really I think kind of is an indication of where the legislature is planning to go on housing and tenant issues this year. And we'll talk about what some of those bills are there. Some of the highlights are in the written report, and we'll talk about a couple of those. But today is very timely because earlier today, Gavin Newsom, the new governor, held his first budget press conference. He's released his first budget. And as you know, that process begins now in January, and there will be hearings on his proposed budget. But the process really kicks into high gear in May when the governor releases what is known as the May Revise, his revision to the budget that's based on what is our actual revenue based on tax receipts that came in April. So between now and May, there will be a lot of discussion, but the real budget process kicks into high gear in May. But in his first budget, there was, not surprisingly, he has a number of priorities, but among them is dealing with the housing and homelessness crisis. And there were some very interesting announcements in that budget today. One of them is a proposal to spend $750 million in general fund money on incentivizing housing. If you look at the package of things that he put out in his budget today, it's a combination of sort of carrot and stick. And really, I think also an effort to try to demonstrate or incentivize some real immediate action in the housing market, and then also make some changes that are maybe longer term that in his mind will help bring down housing costs overall, bring down rents. So $750 million in incentives for housing production, which includes some planning money, and then some general fund revenue that would go to cities that produce housing. And that money, as best we can tell from the budget document, is intended to be unrestricted. So that would go general fund money to local governments that they could spend as they see fit. In subsequent years, he's looking then at sort of the regional housing needs allocation process and what do we do to change the process about how we plan in California for the need for housing. And one of the items in the budget summary says that the Department of Housing and Community Development, which currently has the role of reviewing local housing plans called the Housing Element, that they will go from the process sort of reviewing those and advising about whether they comply with state law to more of a sort of overseeing an enforcement role. So he's envisioning, it sounds like, a more aggressive role from HCD and making sure that cities are doing what they say they're going to do in their housing elements towards producing housing. It also includes a proposal that has been discussed for many years in California, which is how do we incentivize the production of housing? And maybe one way to do that is to link housing production with something that cities really want. And the thing that's always been talked about, which is also in Governor Newsom's budget, is to link it to transportation funding. It's going to be a very controversial proposal, and it may have some practical limitations since much of that money comes from the feds, but there is some discussion about how we could use that money to reward cities to do the right thing or to incentivize them to do the right thing in terms of housing production. There's also a proposal to spend some additional resources towards towards moderate income. There's been a lot of conversation about the missing middle, which is a phrase you hear a lot if you're up in Sacramento or following the sort of housing policy debate. And that concept is focused on the fact that, you know, above moderate income folks are doing fine in this market, and we have a lot of programs, although we obviously need more and we need more resources, but we do have existing programs that target sort of folks in the low and very low income category. But what about those folks right in the middle? So it's got some proposals to address that as well. And then I thought one kind of interesting idea was, where does the state have some skin in this game? Well, the state has a lot of surplus property, and he's proposing that that surplus property, there's already an existing law which provides that that surplus property would go to, is available as one use for affordable housing, but he seems to be proposing to do that more aggressively, put some of that money out, that land actually out on the market for some innovative projects that will jumpstart affordable housing production potentially. There's also some additional commitment similarly on homelessness, some additional sort of carrot and stick of money to incentivize cities and counties to plan for addressing the homelessness crisis and then reward those that do that. So I think those are the sort of the highlights on the budget. We'll be hearing a lot about that over the next several months. This is his sort of opening bid on the budget. The legislature obviously will have a lot to say as well about where the priorities are and shaping some of these proposals and what are the right dollar amounts. But I think for those who really want to see the state have a bigger role in helping to produce and maintain affordable housing in the state, it's encouraging first budget from Governor Newsom. So that's the budget. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about where's the policy making going in Sacramento. We know from last year, from the two prior years, that we will likely see, as I said, we have 30 plus bills already introduced in the housing world. There's going to be a big focus on that. I think a lot of folks are talking about what are we going to do for tenants who are facing rising rents, who are facing eviction. In the prior years, there hadn't been nearly as much sort of innovative legislative action on that as there had been on the funding side of affordable housing. So in the follow-up to Prop 10, there's this ongoing conversation about what is the future of Costa-Hawkins. Is there additional reforms that are needed? I think that's a conversation that's definitely going to happen this year in the state legislature. In your packet, we note AB 36, which is a bill by Assemblymember Bloom that it's just a spot bill at this point, but maybe a vehicle for that discussion. Mr. Bloom, as you'll recall, along with David Chu from San Francisco and Assemblymember Bonta from Alameda County had done AB 1506 last year, which was a precursor to Prop 10 that also proposed the repeal of Prop 10, of Costa-Hawkins. So we'll likely see something on that as well. There's also been discussion about some kind of anti-rent gouging or rent cap that would keep rents, protect in non-rent controlled jurisdictions tenants from extreme rent increases. Obviously, for you all and for other rent controlled cities, a critical piece of that is ensuring that we are not, in doing so, preempting the local ordinance here or elsewhere, and that's, I think, pretty clearly not the intent of that conversation. Some other just quick highlights on the landlord-tenant front that have already been introduced. SB 18 by Senator Skinner focuses both on how do we help keep people housed and how do we better protect tenants who may be facing eviction illegally, and she's proposing to create some sort of funding mechanism to fund a right to counsel for tenants who are facing eviction. SB 53 by Joan Sawyer is a bill that captures an issue that a lot of people have been talking about over the years, sort of what's known as ban the box. The box being the box that you have to check that says on a rental application that says I have been convicted of a crime. and the proposal is that that would be prohibited. You could still do a criminal background check later in the application process, and you could still deny someone who has a criminal history, but they would have the right to also make their case about either the information was incorrect or there were other circumstances that explain the conviction and give themselves another chance to be considered as a tenant. And then finally, I want to mention a bill that was of interest to the board last year, has come back this year. Last year, Senator Wiener had SB 827, which was a proposal to essentially preempt local density controls around transit up to certain height limits. It was a very controversial proposal among tenant advocates, and among tenant advocates, there's a lot of concern about the potentially displacing impacts of unlimited densities that would spur gentrifying development. Senator Wiener has, that bill died. Senator Wiener has come back with SB 50. In the intervening time period, he's had a lot of conversations with many of the opponents. The bill is different than last year, and among the really, I think, significant changes is a prohibition on that bill's application to any property that it had on which tenants had lived in the prior 7 years, or in which the property owner had accessed the Ellis Act in the preceding 15 years. So those would all be off limits to this, which could provide additional protections for tenants. So that bill was among that sort of package of bills that was introduced early on. So noteworthy that that bill last year died in the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee, its first committee. This year in the Senate, they've split the Transportation and Housing Committee, and there's now a Senate Housing Committee and a Senate Transportation Committee. Senator Wiener is now the chair of the Senate Housing Committee. So presumably, and as it goes into its first committee, it will probably get somewhat different treatment, given that he's now the chair of that committee. And I think, in addition, there's a lot of work that's been done to try to make that bill better, and some additional ongoing conversations. So I think compared with last year, the outcome of this year's version of that SB 50 may be different. In your packet, we talked about some of the bills from last year, which I'm happy to answer questions about. I think it being the new session, kind of thinking about that sort of old news. So we're talking about what's coming up, but I'm happy to dive into those if that's of interest to the commission as well. So why don't I pause there, Madam Chair, and hear any questions.
Should we be concerned about that?
No, it's my microphone.
Oh.
Okay. Well, anyway. Thank you very much for that presentation. And Carolyn Trosas has the first question.
As per usual. So I don't know if I understand that it sounds like AB 36 is a spot bill, but I would hope that we're having conversations, we being you, since you're our advocate, on what we want that to look like. And do you have any indication of what that might look like, or is this still being negotiated?
I've said as much as I or anyone else knows. I think we have talked to Assemblymember Bloom's office about it. As I indicated earlier, I think Costa-Hawkins reform is one of the issues that's being talked about, and that bill is potentially a vehicle for that. But the discussions at this early stage in the process really have not advanced beyond sort of conceptual.
And do you recommend that? I mean, I'm assuming that our very capable staff is engaging in any conversations needed. But if there's anything that we can do, I guess we're happy to step up to the task, because I think we have a lot of anecdotal evidence about what needs to be changed.
Well, we often rely on the expertise of your staff. I think it'd be, at this point, it's a little early for us to weigh in on proposals, but we're engaged.
And then, do we have any information with SB 18 as to who might qualify for this direct assistance?
No, it's a good question.
Yeah,
That's undetermined, but I think those are ongoing conversations. curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only the only locality that I know about right to counsel is San Francisco, correct? Yeah, and I would assume that the question of how it's going to be funded is a problematic one.
Right.
And then you write direct assistance and legal assistance. So the direct assistance, would that be like rent subsidies if you
Yes.
can prove that you're going to get back up to speed on your monthly income, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct.
Yeah. This is very interesting to me, and I, of course, would like us to track it. You guys know how I feel about us having an agenda, a legislative agenda, so that we can quickly take positions. And I don't know, Brian, if you heard our comments last year about how the Rent Control Board was considering adopting a state legislative agenda, but do you have any best practices on that?
Well, yeah, I was here for that board discussion. I do a couple of ideas. Number one, I think, as you know, we're tracking all of these bills
Right.
as they come, and we do report on them periodically. I think the best timing for the board to consider positions on bills will be after the introduction deadline, which is in February,
yeah.
and we know the whole sort of what is the universe of bills that we're talking about. And at that point, I think we can sort through those and make a determination about where to go. I think we have pretty clear direction from board and staff about Costa-Hawkins and LSAC.
Right,
So
right.
I think we're just waiting to see what else comes out in the legislature.
Okay, and then one last question with AB 11, bringing back potentially redevelopment here. Do we, just on my cursory reading of this bill, I wasn't clear that there were any criteria as to which areas would qualify for a tax increment financing district. Like, for example, with old redevelopment, you had to declare an area blighted in order for it to qualify. Here, from what I could read, but maybe please tell me if I'm wrong, like if you wanted to declare Beverly Hills a redevelopment area, you could. Do we know if there's any criteria that CHU is planning on introducing for redevelopment areas? I did see that there was a tie to greenhouse gas reductions with cap and trade
Right.
SGC, but I don't know if you could speak further on that.
You're testing my recollection of the details of the bill, but I know there
Okay,
are
no, I
factors
just
in
wasn't-
there
yeah,
that
okay.
have to be met to establish, but blight is no longer the standard.
Right.
AB 11 is one of several bills in the sort of redevelopment or post-redevelopment world. There's also SB 5 by Senator Bell, which is maybe could be viewed as an alternative to
Okay.
redevelopment. But in both instances, as I said, we're getting away from that blight definition, but we also have to keep in mind that without the school share and potentially
Right.
without the other taxing entities, the
Like,
amount
is
of
it
revenue
worth
that
it?
comes from it is not going to be
Right.
the same
Right.
as it was under the old redevelopment. But it is less focused on sort of the traditional redevelopment goals and more as an strictly economic development tool, but more importantly, affordable housing production. That seems to be what's driving both of these proposals.
Okay, thank you. I have lots of comments, but that was very helpful.
Well, you preempted all my questions. No, I mean, they're the obvious questions that a board like this would have. So Carolyn asked them all beautifully, and you answered them for us. Carolyn, no one else in the queue. If you have anything further, continue.
No, I mean, okay. Fundamentally, I know that we don't know what Governor Newsom is really, or what the budget's really going to look like, but to take transportation funding away from local governments that haven't met their RENA production is highly concerning to me, and I understand that that's what he was potentially proposing today. I'm not 100% clear, but I would just say that I would want to, even though we meet our RENA goals, I think that just I think to unilaterally apply that on a statewide level, I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, well, I just want to clarify, hopefully nothing I said. I don't think he's proposing to take it away, but I think he is trying to link it so that there's an incentive to do more, you get more.
Okay, so sorry, you get more. Okay, all right, fine. And then I don't know. I would hope that Senator Wiener has worked with advocates like you to refine SB 50, because I'm not exactly clear about how it differs from 827, but I was concerned about the displacement aspect of 827.
Yeah, and as I said, some of those issues have been addressed, but not fully, and there's still a question mark about the affordable housing percentages in that bill, but I have been, along with a number of other people, in regular conversations with Mr. Wiener about that.
Great. Well, we trust you. Although I'm sure our friends in the back would have something else to say.
I'm also really appreciative that Wiener's bill has evolved and come to recognize things that were due their recognition. There were some glaring omissions. I know that some groups I belong to, we really worked hard writing letters and crafting, suggestions that weren't taken. And so that blocked a lot of support. And I'm glad to see it's come back through. Well, unless staff or anybody else has anything else for Mr. Augusta, we thank you so much for making the trek down to chilly, cold Santa Monica.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And we'll see you soon. Well, that also does it for me tonight as your chair for the past 12 months. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I've learned a lot. Oh, we have special guests came to see my last few words as chair.
Ford.
I want to see Ford.
Team
We'll just
Ford.
pick him up. All right, so the chair will the chair for the last time will entertain a motion for a new chair. Are there any motions for a new chairperson to be nominated? I nominate, if no one else will. I'm glad to see there's no other contention. Commissioner Carolyn Tarosis for the position of chair of the Santa Monica Rent Control Board. Do you accept?
Absolutely. I was very concerned after receiving our letter from Mr. Klotz.
We had a letter from a concerned member of the public.
Unclear if that was a real letter. In any event, yes, I would proudly accept. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Do we do a vice chair as well?
Do we do vice chair now or just vote on her chair? Okay. You call the roll, please.
Alrighty, Commissioner Trosis,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Drown,
Yes.
Commissioner Sultan,
Yes.
and Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Does that mean...
Should we do it now? Should we finish
Yeah,
it up?
finish the
All
meeting.
right, fine.
Yeah, let
Okay.
her gavel us out one last time.
I'm the only one that uses
We need to see Ford.
I know. All right, so we need a motion for a vice chair for 2019.
I move to nominate Commissioner Phyllis for vice chair. Do you accept?
I accept.
I'll second that. All those in favor, will we call the roll for Commissioner Phyllis as vice chair?
Alrighty, Commissioner Drown,
Yes.
Commissioner Trosis,
Yes.
Commissioner Phyllis,
Yes.
Commissioner Sultan, and Commissioner Foster.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Lonnie, how do you pick the order when you do a voice?
It's random.
I always
It's random,
But it always ends with the chair.
Oh, God.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
But you alternate, right?
But I just randomly picked the others. Yes.
Great.
In his mind, he's just going.
I was just like, what is the methodology?
There's no.
There's none.
There's none.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me sit here and fumble through some of these agendas over the months, and that's it for tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I will second that and also say you've done quite an amazing job. No, thank you. I think that I have a lot to live up to here because you always keep us on point, on message, and in order. And I think that you've done a lot of work in making this run very smoothly and think about all of the policies that we've pushed forward this past year with your leadership. I think that we're very lucky, and there'll be a lot of work for us to do now.
And I would just like to add and recognize the amount of work that you've done with corporate and short-term rentals,
yes.
and acknowledge that you were absolutely instrumental in being a whistleblower on what's going on with the short-term rentals, and we've seen that the city is prosecuting people now who are flagrantly violating those laws, and it's because of the tireless work that you have done and selfless work that you have done and all of the work when everyone else was getting ready for the holiday season. You were getting tenants together for short-term rentals. I don't know why I'm about to cry. But thank you.
That's very kind. It certainly, it was a massive group effort of recognition of things that were going on, but thank you very much. I really appreciate that. You guys are my buds.
Okay, so we seconded.
Yes.
Yeah. So you,
All those, we are adjourned.
Wait, did we?
No, we haven't
All
voted.
those in favor
Yes.
of adjourning, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Brian's like, what just happened?